Is it time for you to change your leadership framework or paradigm? Let's talk about it after the intro. Hey, welcome to this episode of the Leaders Seminary. I'm Dr. Mario Hood, and thanks for joining me as we talk about, is it time to change our leadership paradigm or our leadership framework? This is what I spent 3 years on my doctorate discussing and researching. And so, again, I give away my answer right up front, which is I think it's time for us to shift our leadership framework. And today, I'm going to cover a lot of ground and it's going to be a lot of information, but I also promise you in the next couple episodes, we're going to break down all of the different areas we talk about today. And so this is like a 40,000 foot view of why I believe that we can change or need to change our leadership paradigm and embrace a leadership framework that incorporates the Holy Spirit, what I call a paracletic leadership understanding, because Gen Z specifically, and I believe all of us are looking for leadership that brings God into our everyday life, that impacts our everyday life, that leads us and shows us how to be in a world that continually doesn't want us to be present in our actual moments because of digitalization that is happening. But listen to this. In a report that came out from the Pine Top Foundation, they said that in a best case scenario by 2050, 26 million young people raised in Christian homes will disaffiliate. In a worst case scenario, such numbers could exceed 42 million. That's right, 42 million young people raised in Christian homes could disaffiliate by 2050. And to me, that speaks of some leadership paradigms that need to be changed both in the church and in the home. What came to mind when I was doing research and specifically hit that statistic was, what type of leadership is Gen Z looking for? And in order to answer that question, we first must answer, who is Gen Z? What are the characteristics of Gen Z? And as you start digging through the research and start understanding who this generation is. Now, again, these are broad terms. These are generalizations because each individual person is just that. They're individual people. But at the same time, we can frame and understand a generation by their culture and the culture that they are growing up in. There's 3 different areas I want to talk about today. Number 1 is, who is Gen Z? Number 2, what type of leadership are they desiring? And number 3, is there a biblically and theologically antecedent that speaks to this? All right, so let's start with area number 1, who is Gen Z? When you start looking at Gen Z, for me, the way that I break it down is there's 2 dominant cultures that are shaping Gen Z. And in those, or out of those 2 dominant cultures, there's 4 defining characteristics which exposes their leadership style. Culture number 1 is their spiritual culture. Their spiritual culture is shaped by what I call a choice-first worldview. And what a choice-first worldview in simple terms is it is a lifestyle narrative that promotes individualism and personal choice as the way to engage with others. I think in America, especially, or let's just say in Western culture, individualism is rampant. We all are exposed to individualism at very early ages. It is embedded in our culture, and it teaches us to put yourself first, to think about yourself first, and whatever you want to do, you do that. You can be anything you want to be. And while there is truth to some aspect of that, in a Christian understanding of personhood is different than individualism. So personhood is about recognizing the worth of each individual and how God has created all of us in his image, and we all bear the image of God. It doesn't mean that we all get to do whatever we want to do as individuals. A choice first worldview says that individualism and personal choice, it's the way to engage with others. Inside of that, when you couple the fact that Gen Z is the most biblically illiterate generation to date, you see this huge divergence of older generations who, I grew up in the South, lived in the South, still live in the South. Everybody in my generation and above at least knew some basic understanding of Christianity because it was embedded in that culture. So there's the subculture of the South. Well, now, different generation of kids who are growing up in the same places, that Christianese and Christianized version of culture is not there anymore. So Gen Z especially doesn't know anything about the Bible. So they are literally biblically illiterate. And you have these two forces working against each other, or even in tandem in some aspects, where now their spiritual culture is just that. It's who they are and who they want to be. Thanks so much for checking out this episode of the Leaders Seminary, understanding how theology and leadership work together. If you've enjoyed this content, do me a favor, turn the like button blue, and maybe even subscribe to stay up to date with all of the content that's coming to this channel. And while you're at it, check out one of the other episodes that you see on the screen now, and I'll see you in the next one.